Ladies and gentlemen, please fasten your seatbelt.
Blood on your hands, like the poison on my fang. I'm a lady with the gunfire, bang, bang, bang. 'Cause I'm the dynamite, you don't wanna fight. I go boom, boom, boom when I kiss you bad night. Poison on my fang. I'm a lady with the gunfire, bang, bang. 'Cause I'm the dynamite, you don't wanna fight. I go boom, boom, boom when I kiss you bad night. When I kiss you bad night. When I kiss you bad night.
Ladies and gentlemen, please fasten your seatbelt.
Blood on your hands, like the poison on my fang. I'm a lady with
the frame is good.
gunfire.
We're good to go then, yeah?
Yeah.
'Cause I'm the dynamite,
recording is on.
you don't wanna
Cool.
fight. I
So
go
Sreerag,
boom, boom, boom.
I'm so excited to have you on this podcast. And this is going to be a very, very special podcast. Personally for me, and then as well as all the fans who have been looking forward to watching Le Musk. And have I pronounced it right? Le Musk correcta?
I think it's pronounced Le Musk. Le
Musk.
is how it's pronounced in French, and so the Le word is a French derivative, and Musk is it's English and French, or it's
Or the Indianized.
Possibly, yes.
Okay, I'll stick with Le Musk. Let's keep it
Le Musk.
authentic.
Right.
So I have a lot of things to ask you about, and then this is going to be a very super informational podcast. And there's a lot of tech stuff that we are going to talk about, and then me coming from an IT background, I'm very intrigued with so many aspects. I just can't wait. So firstly, I just want to thank you for making time in your very busy schedule, especially now, for this podcast. And I'm really, really, really thankful to you for doing this.
I'm happy to do this, and I'm I'm a bit honored to be also on this podcast. With a lot of people who have come here. I'm just somebody not as great as what they've achieved.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So I'm really happy to be here as well.
No such thing as you're not greater. You're absolutely. I mean, the fact that you're working with Sir and you've been working with him on this particular project for 6 years, for the last 6 years, you have a lot of stories to talk or tell, rather. So I have, but everything aside, before we jump into things, most important question, how do you have a Windows machine there? You just mentioned earlier. How did a Windows machine make it into the studio?
You wouldn't believe it. Most of our work was done in Windows machines.
So I was okay with that?
It was more of the need, right? I don't think Sir is like a Mac person, and I mean, he uses Mac because that gets his work done. But what got our work done for Le Musk was the ability to view in VR. And that was very important for us, and Mac machines still don't have VR compatibility as much as Windows machines do. So like most devices, VR devices were made for Windows hardware, and hence we had to stick with Windows to complete the project.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Yeah. I was very curious because like earlier when we spoke, you said Windows, and I was like, okay, I know there's one person in the entire team who uses a Windows machine for all his work. That's Deepak PA, the mixing engineer. But other than him, there's no one else who uses a Windows machine. And
I mean, yeah, that's audio side, right? So I know they have their preferences. For us, it was about like what got the work done. So
yeah.
I mean, we had both. We did ultimately Mac came to a rescue for some editing related work as well. Like when over 6 years, you can imagine the tech kept changing. Like the entire tech, the softwares. We went through about 6 versions of Premiere Pro. Just to edit the film. Like it started from 2016, 2017, right?
Yeah.
And it just kept changing for us. Change was something that we had to constantly deal with. Windows would update their OS, the editing software would keep updating, and we had to deal with the changes. Even the headsets, we kept getting new VR headsets. So the project through the 6 years was always about adapting to change, bringing whatever made our work and got it done faster. I mean, we didn't want to spend 6 years to begin with, right? Like we were always on the lookout for how can we get this done faster. It was not like we started with, oh, we have 6 years to make this VR film. We had 2 months to make the VR film. You wouldn't imagine that. That's where it began. That's where it began. So we always were on the lookout for what made our work faster. It was so complicated. And nobody has done this before. So it was like constant, like it was always like having to learn, having to adapt.
Right. Amazing. I love it. I love the way you closed it off. Having to learn and having to adapt. So good. And dude, before I dive into things, Mani sir has watched it. And what did he say? I'm sure he was going to come
I'm afraid I missed being here on time, but
Okay.
he did say amazing stuff about it. So I can't recall his exact words, but he did mention stunning.
Yeah.
And he really appreciated it. Like from what I heard, he didn't hesitate to appreciate this at all. And like, you know, as soon as he got done watching it, so that's great to, you know, that's like a huge thing for us for Mani sir to have watched it and appreciated it.
So good. And that's the pot he was sitting on.
Yes, this was where he was yesterday.
Yeah. Okay, great. We're going to talk about a lot of things. So, dude, 6 years in the making, and now it's out in LA. It has opened in LA rather. How does it feel, man? Like what are you going through?
Funny you should ask. I'm actually not going through much because I think this was one of those projects where you can like most confidently say the journey was more rewarding than the end, right? Like 6 years, so many ups and downs, so much we learned, so many wins on the way.
Yeah.
It was not about one large win ever. It was about so many small wins that we had to get through to see this as a final product. Like every shot in the film is a VFX shot. Every shot, like you wouldn't see a film like that possibly, where every shot needed VFX work on it, and not the traditional pipeline that studios are used to. So we couldn't rely on any one studio. We had to adapt like in-house for most of these things, and so every time we got something done, it was a win for us, and we celebrated those wins over 6 years. And like at the end of it, you're like, yeah, I mean, the journey was so rewarding. And so I'm like, okay, sir has already given me new work. So I'm on to that now. I'm really, really happy that it's out, and it's happy that it's there for people to view. And, you know, I'm curious, obviously, about what most people think. The Cannes premiere was a good experience for us as well, because we actually had people walk up and say the exact things that what Sir told us at the beginning of the project. Like, you know, he meant this as a global film. He meant it for a global audience, and to see the global audience come and say, wow, this works, because we kind of lost context. 6 years is a long time. We have watched this film, like we've seen it evolve a number of times, and so we have lost context. We are numb to the film itself, right? So we don't know what it feels like. And then for people from around the world to come up to us and say this was an experience like no other, people coming to watch it like 3-4 times, they're like, I want to see it again. I don't mind. Like, so that was really heartening for us to see people's reaction. So for us, it's just that now, you know, it's just that journey was very rewarding, and we are on to newer things because Sir doesn't stop.
Yeah. So good. And on that note, what is Sir going through now that it's open?
I really can't say. I mean, he is definitely uh, going through a range of emotions. He's relieved. He was nervous at some point, perhaps. I mean, I really can't say what nervousness is for him, right? Like he's very candid to us, but at the end of the day, he's somebody who at the same time can be like, huh, it's fine. You know, he's that sort of a detached person as well at times. And so I really can say I'm sure he's very happy that the fact that we did cross all odds and we came out like at so many points there was always a scare. Could we finish this? Could we complete this? Because we jumped into it and it was all about us swimming till the end, you know, like reaching the shore. And that now that we have done it, and he's a man of like multiple projects happening all at once, right? Like everywhere, everything all at once, and so that happens. So certain conversations are about Lemas, certain conversations are about purely about new projects. So it's very hard for me to say, but I'm sure he's very happy about the end
So
result.
good. So good. And actually, on that note, I still remember this is like a very brief conversation that I had from Lemusk. Am I pronouncing it right? Lemusk? Lemusk.
The Musk, that's fine.
I'll
I'm
stick.
sure the audience, global audience, is going to pronounce in like many which ways, right? Like that's
I'll go
totally
with
fine.
Lemusk. In this context, I remember about 2 years ago, we had this little conversation. And at that point in time, the infrastructure side of things in terms of the installation and all that was not even on the radar. It wasn't finalized and all that. So it was like, it's almost there. We just have to crack that one thing. And after that, we're good. It'll happen. It'll happen. And he said it like 3 times. It'll happen. And today it has happened and it's out there, it's opened up, and I'm so thrilled. And I only got to watch a tiny bit of it, but I can't wait myself to watch the entire 37 minutes duration movie. Now the thing is, I mean, earlier, in our conversation, you mentioned that you had to do almost everything in-house, right? Because it's one of a kind and it's first time ever in terms of doing something with such a vision, first of all. What are the things that you had to do from an in-house? Like, what are the things you had to do in your studio? That is the studio where Lamask was completely done.
So I'm afraid I changed location.
Okay.
Okay, this is where we have the exhibition set up, but the studio is upstairs.
Right.
I just thought this is a better,
Yes, yes.
really like to do it here instead. So for us, we did like Sir likes to rely on technology a lot to get like new creative ideas out, right? So it began with the idea. It began with experimenting, and we were in fact doing a VR experience for 99 Songs, his Bollywood film that released, and but like the results of it inspired him to like take up like Lemas can do it. And when we began, we thought, okay, we have the technology there, and this was in 2016 when you had a lot of companies getting into VR production. Like people were making cameras that were suited for cinematic VR experiences. And there is this company called Jaunt. They made this camera called the Jaunt One VR, and that they promised, like an amazing cinematic quality capture. And they also had the stitching, so it seemed like a one-stop solution for us to bring this. However, it wasn't like, okay, we have the shots plan, we'll do it. We did an entire previs in Chennai with stand-in actors to know if the story was working in VR at all. We had our own experimental setup, not the Jaunt one, but like, the smaller 360 cameras. We created a stereo version of it, and we made an entire edit of the film way before we actually shot the film to know if this story was working, if this medium works for us.
Yeah.
And that was crazy. So, and and the best part is that we could use that previs to communicate to the actors and to all the other crew members, saying that this is how it's going to end up looking, like an idea. And VR is something that's like to be put into another reality is not something you can just tell people about it. It's an experience that they have to experience themselves to know what it feels like. And that really helped us orient a lot of our crew members, everybody to this. And once the shoot got done, which was exactly 6 years ago in November, the challenge was to, okay, now we have all this data that we need to get stitched. And it's not like we can stitch everything and start seeing. We can do a rough stitch of all the shots, but to get the fine stitch done, it cost us per second of footage that, we had to stitch. And we stitched it. We saw the results. Initially, we were like, okay, can we do better than this? And there was a lot of glitches. There was a lot of flickering and artifacts, and there were all these bubbles around the actors. And so, like, no tech, that's something we learned, that no tech is perfect. Like, it's always marketed as one thing, but when it comes to the final and the quality that Sir asks for, and that what he's looking for, and what we were also looking for. So we aligned with his vision with that one, that we don't want to release something that's, it had to be an experience where people felt immersed. And somehow the output we got initially wasn't it. And luckily, we had people in our team who could contact the company and get, push them to give us better output. And that came with its own set of problems, which we found solutions for in-house. Like when we stitched, it was a 24 camera setup, that there were 24 cameras roll like a pumpkin, and they roll simultaneously. And then that each of those 24 cameras that are pointing in different directions need to be stitched algorithmically on the cloud. And our biggest challenges, like when people started doing VR films, they were doing 360-degree videos, which is very different from true virtual reality, in the sense that a 360 video feels like you have a dome screen and you just have something flat projected onto it. Whereas true VR, as we believe, is something where you feel the depth, you feel a person walk up to you. So there is depth. So stereoscopy was very important. 3D was very important for us to feel the presence of another person in front of us, for example, or feel like we are in an environment. And we weren't ready to compromise on that. And that gave us 10x the problems. The fact that we weren't ready to compromise on that, whereas most people just got away with doing 360 videos and presenting their ideas.
Yeah.
We wanted it to be a true immersive experience. And Sir, we don't use the word virtual reality. For him, it's a cinematic sensory experience. And it's not just about the visual, it's about the audio, it's about the X factor here, which is the scent, around which the whole story was even written. It was not like scent was an afterthought. So all of this, we were aiming for the highest quality. Sir was aiming for the highest quality. And we pushed the companies to provide us better quality footage, but it came with its own set of problems. And now we had to deal with that. And that was not something that's dealt with in a regular film industry pipeline, where they don't have issues of artifacts around actors. They don't have to roto out every actor in every shot, which is something that we did. We had to clean up every frame of the movie. Literally every frame of the movie had to be cleaned up. And this wasn't, again, in a format that people are used to. It's not a screen. It's a 360-degree video.
Yeah.
One for each eye. So that was a lot of volume of work that we had to deal with, and we had to come up with ways in-house, because there was nobody else doing it at the scale that which we were dealing with before. So that we had to come up with solutions ourselves.
Right. Wow. That's been a journey for sure. And since you mentioned, so the footages that were shot like 6 years ago, did any of that had to be reshot, or
So we didn't reshoot. We did a small pickup shoot after a year, where Sir had more ideas.
Okay.
And he wanted more shots to replace some of the shots we had done with that camera. So before which we used a completely different setup. And he wanted to. So it was a constant process of research. Even after the shoot, we were researching on cameras. Sir has never stopped researching till this date on VR cameras and camera technology. And that's something that I love doing as well. So he always buys the new stuff and he hands it to me, and then I have to test it. So we did this process in that like throughout these 6 years as well, like
Yeah.
because he's always had new creative ideas and he never stopped at saying that, okay, we have the stuff, let's just finish it. No, he's like kept adding because he just wanted to make sure this was like perfect. So we did that, but surprisingly the footage held up. The quality of VR headsets increased though. So we were dealing with towards the end with footage that was not holding up to the quality of the VR headsets. But we found ways to upscale it to such detail that like towards the end we had like a really high quality. So we went from 4K VR. 4K VR is in traditional sense like full HD, okay, like 1080p full HD TVs. Because VR just demands more resolution. So that's the equivalent. So we had to go from that, and we went to 6K VR, which is somewhere in between 4K and full HD for regular cinema. And that's where the headsets are right now, and that's where the playback is possible right now. So we found that sweet spot, and that's like that really made it. We had to upscale there and bring it to the level of but yeah, it's worked for us.
Understand. Great. And also, I mean, considering that this has been in the making since the last 6 years, right? And obviously, since you mentioned earlier as well, obviously, technology evolves, and attached to that, you have to keep either upgrading or, updating the software and things like that. So that was obviously must have been challenging, right? As part of that process, to constantly keep updating it, and then to ensure that you have the optimum SIR quality that's always expected out of.
I think it was a good thing that the whole team, like we had a core team of around 5 to 6 people here.
Yeah.
We were always thinking in terms of SIR's quality. So we were never like, oh, let's just get away with it, right? We also were thirsty for that quality that SIR was looking.
Right.
And that naturally made us want to do, like learn and adapt. Often we had to deal with the fact that upgrading also broke earlier versions, like earlier project files. And then we had to find a way to install the old versions of the softwares and get that data out. It was, it has been crazy. That's why it's like a journey. It was an adventure of its own, where not everything was certain and like we knew a process to follow. We had to keep adapting at every step. And going through. So when the sailing was smooth, we kept going through it. When there was turbulence, we had to learn to navigate around it, and then keep going through it, navigate. So it was on and off. We had moments where we did have smooth sailing, and there were moments where there were turbulence and we had to learn. So as with any project, I believe. So no different.
I love it. I love the way you put it. So, and dude, and since you mentioned that even before you guys went to shoot, were you there in Rome for the shoot?
So I was there before the shoot. I was there during the recce. And we were capturing locations in VR just to know what it felt like for Sir to come back and review those shots. I was like, my wedding was scheduled for exactly during the shoot. So I had to come back to India. So that was like, I just celebrated my 6th anniversary. Like 6 years.
Very nice.
It marked the shoot of Les Musk, and it marked the release of Les Musk on the same date.
There you go. How good it is.
Very dramatic.
I'll send you a box of chocolates.
Thank you. So I remember Sir joking about it, like one day Sreerag will have kids and they'll be like, Daddy, what are you still working on? Daddy, so I'll be like, it's a long project. It's a long story, son. I'll have to tell you. So Sir used to joke about that, and so back then I was in Italy for the recce. I was helping with capturing those locations and showing it to Sir, like back in the hotel room where we were staying. So that was kind of my role. I've been the VR technologist for the project back then. Then also took up a VFX supervisor role when it came to the fact that we had to do things in-house. So again, adapting.
Superb, superb. And then, so obviously you had done a mock shoot in Chennai, right? Prior to going to Rome, and then so was it? Oh, you used a normal 360 camera for a mock then? Is that what you said?
We did use a normal 360, but we made it stereoscopic. So we did some jugaad there, and we were able to stitch it in stereo to show sir what it felt like with depth. And
Understand.
so right from the beginning, that was a requirement that you feel like you're present there. And that meant that you had to shoot it in 3D, and we had to edit it in 3D and show it to him like within a span of a week. Like this is what it looks like. So imagine we did shoot a VR film and showed it to him, albeit with like lower quality and less VFX requirements.
Yeah.
And, it's just to get the sense of an idea of what it was like.
Agree. Okay, cool. And then you went to shoot the actual shoot then, and which is a proper VR camera. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so, and is that so? That's a 24 camera ball. Is it? How do you describe that camera?
You could call it a composite camera. That's the technically right word. That comprised of 24 cameras situated radially.
Okay.
And that because that was designed by the company, and they designed the software to stitch it.
Right.
So we had like a one-stop solution to get both done, like the capture and stitch. Just that we had to clean up the stitch and make it even better than what they gave us to get the quality that we saw. And like I said, apart from that, we had our own camera solutions developed in-house. Where we captured additional footage with.
Yeah, of course. Okay. And now connected to that, what I was trying to ask was, so you had that, composite camera. I'll go with that term for now. And so how do you go about like shooting a scene, right? So let's say a guy is just walking on a pathway, just making it up. I'm not saying that this is going to be there in the movie. He's just walking in the park or something. So someone holds the camera, or it's there's a rig that goes, or so it's just the camera is just in one position but capturing the entire thing around it, right?
Yes, it was on a tripod. And it was static. For most shots, it was static. We have some shots that were also moving. Like we had one shot with it in a car, and we had a shot that was on a moving ferry boat. So, but like we never moved the camera as such. There was always a steady base to which it was rigged. Yeah.
Right. So now with that said, what I'm trying to ask then is, what about the FPV and the POV shots as well? Like, because obviously from a VR perspective, I would like to see what the character is also seeing, something along those lines. Am I right? Am I making sense by asking this?
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So how do you go about executing that bit?
So it's just the fact that you use a regular camera instead of the place of the actor, right? You just position the camera there. So there are some scenes where you wanted to be in the actor's shoes and, and see what they're, experience what they're feeling. And some shots are observing, right? Like you're observing what's going on in the story. So you're an observer at times and you are the character at times. So it's just a matter of placing it like just any other camera. Like in a regular camera, the other actors look at the camera and talk to you, or they don't mind you at all and they go about, playing their part. So you're just merely an observer and they don't look at the camera. So.
Right. Okay. So now as an extension to that, you can clearly see why I'm so very interested. I'm just trying to understand as to how this is actually done. So now the bit is, what am I trying to ask? So this guy is walking or doing something, the shot is taken, and so you got the footage. And how do you decide what is the key frame? Like in terms of there is either an object or or a character or whatever it is that needs to be the keyframe, right? For us, you know what I'm trying to ask. So, so what I'm
Like
trying.
you were saying, what is in front of you? Is that what you're trying to
Yeah,
ask?
yeah, yeah. So what
Because there is
would
no
be the
front.
focus? Huh?
Oh, the focus. Focus is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Uh, I
Because
think you can liken it to.
you have a 24 camera ball or a composite camera with absolutely
I like it being called a 24 camera ball. That's
24 camera ball.
more.
So
Yeah,
might kill me if he
yeah,
hears this. So, I'm just curious to know as to is this bit actually written saying, okay, this should be the focus for this particular scene? How do you
yes,
visualize?
very
Like,
much.
Sir is the director. How did he go about thinking from that perspective? That's what I'm trying to get at, which I'm struggling to ask this question.
Okay. So I really think it's what the story demands, right? So the story demands a screenplay. Now your screen is much wider than your regular screen.
I
It's
know.
all around you, right? That's the only difference in terms of a
Okay.
like a filmmaker perspective. That you have a story. Earlier, you could show what you needed to show on screen, but
Yeah.
now the screen is all around you. So how do you get the audience to focus on the story? Is that what you're trying to ask? Like what's
Yeah. Yeah.
happening? Because there's everything everywhere. So one of the ways we are able to do it is by having the most prominent action and the audio in front of us. We can orient the view however which way we want in the edit, right? So we can have the action in front of us, and to prevent people from like looking all around, we have a chair that controls where they look. So you don't have to even worry about missing something, or you don't have to worry about seeing everywhere. The whole point is to just be immersive rather than be like, oh, it's 360, I have to look everywhere. Like the whole point is that you feel you're in that world. But as long as you're seeing something happening in front of you, you do follow it. Like as a viewer, you are intrigued by what's happening there. Of course, you want to know, okay, what else is happening? You
Correct.
can look around. A lot of the viewers we've seen actually tend to just sit and look straight.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a habit. I don't know how that
Because
comes.
I have to admit I was the other way around when I put the Oculus on and I was watching the sample footage. I was looking everywhere to see what else am I seeing.
Right. So, in a way, you do in your peripheral vision see everything. But then when you're not seeing something interesting there, as much as interesting in front of you, you would come back there, right? And you have dialogues, you have audio coming from there rather than from everywhere else. Like there is ambient sound, but your actors talking is what's more prominent to you than somebody else talking. So you are focused to what's happening in the story, regardless of what's happening around you. And
Right.
so that's one of the things that like worked for us. Like that's why the previous shoot worked for us, because we
Yeah.
knew whether it was working or not.
Indeed.
Could we focus? And it's not necessary that don't want to reveal much, that there is 360-degree action. There are places where there's only action in front and it's only 180 degrees. So it's just the point of being immersive that was important to us, and not the fact that, oh, we have to show something everywhere, all around. It was not like we had to saturate the view with stuff. So
Right.
we wanted to stick to the story, but we wanted to be more immersive than what a regular film can give. Like
Right.
that's the experiment. That's Sir's experiment, and
Love it.
and I think it's worked for us.
Love it. So you got the footage now, and then you're on the editing table, which is I think yourself, right?
No, the editor is Anand Kishore. Like to begin with, we really didn't have. We were kind of like polymaths. Like all of us on this project, we had to take up multiple roles. It was
Right.
not like, so you can call. I was more of the IT administrator, the VR technologist, experimenting with workflows, experimenting with data, networking, visual effects, CGI. So my role was more of there. Anand Kishore was the editor on the project. Like that ended up becoming eventually evolved into him, and we had an associate editor, Hashim Zain also. So
Okay.
they ended up becoming the editors on
Right.
this project, and
Right.
I ended up becoming the VFX side and taking care of the visuals the other way.
Great. That's amazing. So how do you how is I mean, like, how is a clip optimized for Oculus? Like,
Okay. For
how
editing, you mean?
from an
How do
editing
you?
perspective, then? Yeah.
Okay. So that was a very early challenge. That's a good question. For us, the fact that we are not editing what's seen on a rectangular display, but we are
Correct.
editing something that's all around us, meant that we had to be able to see what we are editing from the timeline on a VR headset directly, and not like do something, export, and then see what it looked like. But that was a huge challenge for us all towards the end, because editing by itself is a very performance heavy thing, especially with video, right? And in our case, like with most films, they would have proxy material, like they would down dress the video to a lower sized and a lower resolution video so they can edit it smoothly, and then like attach the original clips back once we are done with the edit. And that works for cinema. In our case, the moment we down dress the video, we couldn't see their faces clearly, we couldn't see their expressions, and the challenge was that you had to edit with knowing, is the expression right, is the actor performing correctly, and we had multiple takes, right? So you had to pick the right take
Yeah.
where it worked for the story. Maybe another take would have a better performance from the actor, but for all that, you had to see it in from the editing table directly on the headset, and that was always a big challenge for us. But we had softwares at that time that took up that actually upgraded, because VR was picking up at a great pace back then, like VR filmmaking. So some people had made, initially there were plugins, third-party plugins that we had to install. Then there was a native integration into Premiere Pro itself that we could directly view on the headset. But it was like always a struggle to get it to perform smoothly. So sometimes you had to like pause and then see it, like edit, pause and see it. So it was quite a bit of a challenge for the editors to see it. And then they had to take an export that would go on for like hours, like 8 hours and 10 hours, sometimes overnight, and then see the entire bit that they have edited to see
Yeah.
whether it's looking good or not, whether it's come out the way they wanted. So it's like the early days of film, like so. And I guess that it was like, okay, we had to do it anyway. We had to find out whether it's working, and we got through that somehow.
Amazing. And since you mentioned, so you used Premiere Pro for
We
editing.
use Premiere Pro, yes. We
And
did
that,
we did try FCP in between, because Apple had announced that they had headset support, and the fact that FCP could edit VR video. In fact, but we had a huge trouble now of changing everything from Premiere Pro to FCP, because there was certain paradigms that worked natively with Premiere Pro that didn't have, like transitions were there that were not present in FCP, like VR transitions, not regular transitions.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And then the challenge was for it to perform on the headset. We kept running into trouble. We got Apple support directly, like from headquarters, on trying to get this, because it was Sir in question, right? Like so. We did try all that, but then we came back to Premiere Pro eventually. And like I said, the hardware kept improving, the software kept improving,
Yeah.
to a point where things we kind of stabilized with how we worked, and we
Right.
found a workflow. But yeah, rocky start, but then steady going. That way for the
Right. Okay. And then Premiere Pro was on the Windows version or the Mac?
Windows machine, because the VR headset worked on the Windows machine. So
Understand. And as part of this journey, you must have seen multiple revisions of Oculus as well, right?
yes.
Is
We had an Oculus DK2. That was the developer kit that Sir had got, but that was way before.
Yeah.
And then we got the Rift. He got the Rift at the beginning of the project itself. After Rift, we tried the HTC Vive. So we have like a huge range of headsets here. We've tried everything. Sir's bought the HTC Vive, and we tried with that. So some systems for VFX were using the HTC Vive, some were using the Oculus Rift. And then Samsung came along and brought in their headset that worked natively with Windows, the Samsung Odyssey headset. And that's what we used for bulk of the project. Like that lasted us the longest time because it was an upgrade. It was an OLED display, didn't need additional sensors. You could just like put it on. And we somehow got through with that until they stopped production, unfortunately. And now we moved on to HP headsets, which is in production, has a higher resolution display, and that's what's on the positron chairs now. So which is why, like I said, like the Samsung, we were fine with the Samsung nearly all the way till the end of the project, like nearly like 5 years. And then the HP headset came on, and we had no choice but to like make our visuals match up to that. Like, you know, surprisingly, some visuals did. Some visuals sort of degraded along the VFX pipeline. We had to give it to additional vendors, and it was not like we knew what went on inside. So when they were finished with it and gave it back to us, with the older headsets, we didn't know the difference. But when the new headset came along, we were like, oh my God, the quality has degraded so much. It's like getting a newer pair of headphones and like, oh my God, like this sounds so bad, right? I thought it sounded good all this time. So that's what we had to deal with. And okay, like now what can we do next? How can we bring it up? And we did just that.
Love it, love it. Now I want to switch over to the cool stuff that you got right behind you, the pod. And now the pod, of course, I've experienced the installation here in Melbourne. I loved it and spoke about it with Sir as well. But a couple of things that I definitely want to ask you in terms of, I'm so intrigued with that is the haptic touch movements as like haptic touch. Why am I struggling with this? Haptic touch.
Haptics. I think that's it. Haptics mean haptics.
Yeah. So why am I on? Sorry. So how are these programmed? How is this programmed with a clip that you have shot? How do you program it? Like, can you talk me through that bit?
Okay.
If you don't mind, or maybe I'll try to make it even more simpler. Put it along these lines. Now, let's say there's a guy here walking in the park, right? In the pathway again, and absolute layman language. And then, so it's autumn and there's leaves around, and then he steps on it, and you obviously have to capture that. And then there's this autumn, aroma, that bit as well. So you need to program the diffuser, the aromatic diffuser, to give that scent or the aroma. But the trick is, he trips while walking on the pathway, and you need to capture that bit, and that needs to be programmed in this pod with this haptic. So can you talk me through this? You don't have to go to the absolute detail of what I just described, but what usually happens in something like this?
Got it. So I think mostly it's the vision of Sir and the editors. Like they worked on how to orient these scenes in such a way that it works best for the storytelling.
Right.
So we worked with rotating chairs, so we could just revolve around and see what it felt like and where the chair needed to be. And we gave these notes to the company that makes these chairs, Positron. So they've been doing the encoding, the motion encoding for us. So the creative input comes from here, and it's a continuous process where we try something out, we give it to them, we check it out here, and then Sir sees it, and then if there are any notes, it goes back and forth. So they have a way to encode, and they send the motion encoding for the chair. But we give them the direction that this is what we want. Like this is how we would like to see. And that is something that's discussed with Sir here and the editors. And they come to the conclusion that, okay, we'll orient it this way. And sometimes it's like when we show it to Sir, we are actually putting him on a rotating chair and we are actually moving it around to give the idea or like this is what's going to happen. And sometimes it's him just moving the chair around and saying, oh, this should come here, this should come there. he's the director at the end of the day. So we trust his instinct and we pass on these notes and we get it encoded for the chair, and that's how it works. And the scent was another thing. He had notes for like what scent needed to come where and where the scents were important. So that was his vision. He experimented with various scents. We had people on board for the olfactory experience. There was Manisha, there was Grace Boyle from the Feelies initially. So we had all of these scents sent to us, and he used to sample them and say which ones worked, which ones didn't work, and he wanted to know, like, and again, like the same process with the chair, we were able to tell them that we wanted this scent at this specific point of time. And the technology was chosen by us, by Sir, like, the sense that it's not the kind of scent that like lingers on. It's the scent that like stays there for a moment as long as it's needed and just disappears. So it's not like you hear an audio and it keeps echoing all the time, right? Like you don't want that sensation. You want it to be there to immerse for the moment and like just be gone. So the technology for that was chosen as such that it satisfied that requirement. And the sense itself were chosen specifically by Sir for this particular story. And that device was again integrated by the makers of the chair, Positron. So they have integrated it onto the chair, and that's also, there's a separate scent track, and that controls how the scents are released.
Wow. I love it. I love it. Okay, great. And so which means that it needs to be topped up after every show per se, right?
It lasts for a good number of shows. So
yeah?
It's not like it needs to be topped up every show. There are like, cartridges that last for an N number of shows. Even I'm not sure exactly how many. I wasn't dealing with that, I'm afraid. But yeah, they do last for like I don't think at Cannes we had to change the sense as such for any of those pods for like about 10 days of showing or so. But yeah, but we do have backup, so it's just a matter of changing it and loading a new cartridge in. So
right, great. And I know for the fact that these pods are not cheap. They are definitely very expensive. So just out of curiosity, what you don't have to go into the exact details, but what does one pod cost? I mean, because of the huge amount of money that gets spent on the installations, and also depends on how many pods you can have at a location as well, right? So yeah, I mean, at a very high level, what's the ballpark in terms of per pod with a tech like this?
So, I mean, I've not been updated on the latest numbers. I know something from like way long back, way long back. So I assume it's costing way more than $50,000 per chair. That's my ballpark. I would assume.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
But then like I don't know what the numbers are now. Like
I know.
The chairs themselves have changed, so they're not the same. Like Positron have updated the chairs and the tech. Since the first showing that we had at NAB, that was back in 2017. So the numbers I have for you are from then. So I might be very mistaken about the numbers, but let's say like tens of thousands of dollars, right? Like it's the tech.
I agree. And now the sound that we experienced, while watching the movie or experiencing the movie, let me put it that way. You must have tried and tested a number of headphones to suit that, right? And then you must have benchmarked something.
Sir did? Choice. Yeah, of course. It's his audio, it's his direction, and that's completely Sir's thing. So yeah, we did test a whole lot of audio, and I think he's still continuing to test. Like I said, even after the shoot, we were still testing cameras, right? So even after the release, he's still testing headphones because he's never like, it's done. Like, how can we make this better? How can we make this experience better for people who are watching it? So we are still, he's still always on the lookout to make this experience better and better,
Right.
with the
Yeah.
practicalities, of course. But yeah.
Because as I said, I experienced it here at the installation here in Melbourne, and these are the things that was kind of running in my head as to, okay, you obviously you cannot have just an ordinary headset on your ears. It needs to be something very specific from Musk perspective, and not the random footages that get shown here as part of the show. And then also it needs to have the noise cancelling, and also what's the other thing that I was going to ask, and in terms of obviously something that syncs correctly with the visuals as well, right? So yeah, I mean, I was just curious along those lines, that's all, as to, okay, has there been a benchmark set that this is going to be the headset that needs to be there for every single pod when this movie is played? Is that how it would be when it comes out?
I think so. I think so. Like how in cinema, you have Dolby Atmos as a standard, right?
As
For
the
example,
standard.
or
Yeah.
like there is THX, or there are so many standards for which the audio is mixed, and they would have a reference set of audio back in the studio to know that what people are experiencing is what was mixed in the studio. Like as the director, like expects people to feel it. So similarly, like what we are showcasing in terms of audio is what Sir wants people to hear. And so we had the default headphones removed from the headsets, and they're using another set of headphones that's specifically chosen for Sir. I mean, it's been a continuous learning process, because it was at Cannes that for the first time, not for the first time necessarily, but at Cannes we did have a bigger showing, and we had a noisier environment. So like we were like, okay, what works better here? So there was a constant, continuous learning process of, okay, what works better. The Sir's been experimenting with many headphones and trying to find what sounds like his vision is, or like his I don't know what the term for in terms of audio is, like, but what he wants people to hear, right? In terms of the audio, which is what he is known for. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, of course. And since you touched on Khan's, talk me through, buddy. I mean, how was it going there? And then what was it like to hear the feedback from people? And also, I guess even Madhavan was there and he watched it, right? And I remember he had some amazing words to say. So yeah, please share your experience, or of going to.
Cannes was like surreal because obviously it's not something.
I love that group picture that you had with Sir. That was so cool. In fact, that's still
that's like, I really thank Sir for such an opportunity to be on a group picture like that, right? Like that was very impromptu, and like, he's put it up, and that's very sweet and kind and like amazing of him to do so from a personal perspective. And the thing is, it was something that we were like, okay, this experience has to be great for people, because it's for the first time we're going to showcase it to the world. And up until getting onto the flight to Cannes, like we were testing the audio. Sir was sitting on the chair and watching the film right up until, like, from this chair, he walked or he went straight to the airport. That's how it worked, because we had to get it right. This was our shot at something, and we were like all up. It was like battle, like we had to get it there. And so we did that. We went to Cannes, and we had to set it up as it's not just the experience of being on the chair, but it's also the experience of walking into the pavilion. And those are things he is very specific about, and which he wants to create this amazing experience, not just about like going in and immersing, but even outside of that. Like what you see glowing next to me, they're all holographic displays that are showing certain motifs from the film. So the same is installed at LA as well. So you would see. So it's not just about immersing the person into the film, but also bringing the film into the real world. It's going both ways. So the moment you enter the experience, you're going into the film is calling out to you, and you are going in. So the similar thing is what he wanted at Cannes. We had a bigger holographic display. It is called the Looking Glass display, and we had that showcase the actor, in her traditional attire from the story, and that was such a wow thing for people to walk in and just see that. That was one of those things. And apart from that, since it was a showing, it was an opportunity for a lot of people, like you said, like a lot of celebrities, a lot of people to come and watch it. It was good to get their what they felt. And I mean, everything was positive, right? Like, I don't know, and I think we had to just take their word for it, because by this point we are like, I'm numb to what they're, like, okay, you think it's great? Wow, okay, thank you. Like, I'm really happy to hear that. So we were involved with setting it up and making sure that things were running smoothly, and then we had Positron who helped us run the show for those 10 days, the 2 weeks that it was on for. But it was good. We got a lot of good word out there. We got a lot of people watch and say that I want to be a part of this experience. We got a lot of people saying, hey, I want to do something like this in my country. How do I take this to my country? How do I showcase it there? And it was just great to know that people from all around the world, who have assembled there at Cannes to come and tell you that, and people who are like directors, actors, and like anybody that we could have witnessed it, to come and speak about it. We got their testimonials, and that was really like a once in a lifetime experience that I had at Cannes as well. So
I can imagine.
Yeah. So now it's like, okay, we've got like celebrities talk about it. We've got other people in the fraternity talk about it, but like, what about the general folk, right? Like, so now LA is exciting in that way. The fact that it's out to public and like everybody is out there to like experience it.
Yeah. And then there's great feedback coming out too. So and there was one this morning as well, which Sir had shared. One of the fans from the community had put up a post after watching it. And then yesterday there was another fan who watched it, and I shared the feedback to Sir. Now, the next thing I wanted to ask was, so what's the plan for the way forward in terms of like, I know Australia, it's happening soon. What about India? What's on the plan? Like, I know, is it going to be in every city, which I don't think is going to be likely.
I really don't know. But I know that his intent had been, or what he had expressed as his intent was that he made this for a global audience, and not just because it's an English language film. Full cast has been like non-Indian cast, and like he wanted to not make it an Indian film, or he didn't want to make it, like he wanted to make it a global film with a story that people around the world can connect, and not like say that okay, we tell stories about India, but we're telling stories about the world. So it's a world film, and he wants to showcase it to the world before he does bring it. He definitely is bringing it to India, and I'm sure when it comes here, it's going to be in a big way. Up until that point, I think he's going to hit the circuit where he takes it to Europe, the Middle East, everywhere else, and like get all of that going. Because he didn't specifically make this for an Indian audience, so he's making content for that, like in his music, his movies. That's been happening as well parallelly. But this particular piece was for a global audience. So with I believe that that was what his intention was, and then he wants to deliver it there before he can bring it to India. But if it does come to India, I think it would really depend on what opportunities are there, and what's the best. I think an assessment would be done to know where it would be premiered. I mean, or like where it would be showcased within India in it itself. So, but I think it's safe to expect it to go around the world before landing here.
Which makes complete sense. Yeah. And I can't wait for that to be opening here in Melbourne, because the installation is here. It's ready. I'm waiting. And now moving slightly away from Le Musk, because I think we have spoken enough. Coming over to you, I was looking at your website yesterday, and then looks great, by the way. I loved it. And I saw a lot of emphasis on color grading on a number of things that you've worked on. So, dude, talk me through is what exactly is color grading? I mean, in my eyes, it's definitely not just applying the filters. Okay, that's it's a very silly way of saying it. But what I'm trying to ask is also bringing in from the Lamas context. You obviously choose a certain palette, right? When even before you go to the shoot and stuff like that, and then you kind of stick with that palette on the editing table, and then do you come up with custom color gradings and things like that to suit what the vision is and things like that? And yeah, I mean, talk me through that, buddy. What exactly is happening in the color grading world?
Right. So in a regular film, you would do that because it's more of a cinematographer's vision in the
Right.
traditional film thing. Like the cinematographer has a way in which he wants to capture the image in order
Yeah.
to set the mood or the tone for the story, and there is the and possibly to make it look natural sometimes to uh, give a certain effect of either epicness or like a moody
Mm.
scene.
Mm.
So the color would be set with the lights to begin with, but then
Yeah.
because you have digital tools available for you, you are able to manipulate and fine tune it in post.
Yeah.
And that you can bring it to the quality that, okay, this is what I wanted to achieve. Great, now we have it. Like even though you might have missed it in shoot itself, like you would have got the general tone of it by using a certain color of light, but
Mm.
you're like, oh, but it's a little too bright in here, it's a little too dark in here, I want these details to show up, but I want these things to be more subtle. So color grade is about being able to manipulate the image in a way that the color complements the story, the mood, the emotion at that specific point in time again. So it's all about the story, right? And like what works best for that. And again a creative art, I would say, to come up with
Right.
like figure that out. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I was just curious. I was just keen to ask you because almost every project that you had worked on, there was color grading there. So I was just keen to ask, okay, from your perspective, that's all. And now, talking about some of your earlier work with Sir, which one was your first ever project? Was it Ninja Year Promo or the KM one, Rolly?
So when I did meet Sir, he said he wanted somebody at KM to do put out content
Yeah.
from there, and so that's where I started with, because I used to do shoots as freelance, so
Mm.
I used to shoot,
Mm.
edit it myself, and then put out content. That's what I was doing back then. I used to direct music videos, so any kind of video production was my
Yeah.
thing. And so he put me on there, but the Rolly was one of those experiences where he had a vision, and I feel I kind of superseded that, and I told him, "Sir, this might work better," and he's like, "Perfect, do it." Uh, and it got done, and he really appreciated for that, and that was really very, like when Sir appreciates you, it's something like, oh my God, you feel like a child, being awarded a star. Like it was such an
Mm.
experience for me the first time. But Ninja personally for me was way more emotional because this was the first time that I did a video and Sir
Yeah.
put music for it. To, the other ones were performed by somebody else and he commissioned that video. It was his
Correct.
creative vision. I did it. And this one, he asked me to shoot it and edit it. And he said, okay, so I did an edit with some stock music initially and showed him, so this is the style. Okay. And then he did this very, I mean, I can still say it's one of the most like heart-wrenching or like, hitting music I've heard from him. Like every
Yeah.
time I listen to it, I'll get tears in my eyes. So I was in one small edit room and he brings me, hey, I have this. He gives me this USB, said, I've done this new version of the audio for the promo. So put it on and let's see how it sounds. And I was there sitting with him and listening to him, it for the first time. I was like, I was
Yeah.
privileged. I felt privileged to like hear something like, A.R.Rahman does music and you're the first person to hear it, right? And I put it on, I heard it and it was so haunting, so beautiful. I was so moved. I was like overwhelmed by the fact that the man is sitting next to me and the fact that the music is haunting, all at once. And for me personally, that's the one experience I would say that's the closest to my heart to have sir put music for something you have done. And then, that was just like there. And I was sitting and like there were tears in my eyes while watching that and have him sit next to me. That was definitely the thing I would say
Absolutely
most
love it.
impactful one.
Love it. And in fact, when I watched it yesterday on your website, I watched it a few times. It was so magical. I mean, yeah, I couldn't describe it myself. So, and then you also worked on For You, My Love. I love that video too.
Thanks.
Right.
So that was a
And
VFX role all in all. So
yeah.
designing that environment and as a VFX supervisor to take it to another world itself, right? Like his music does that to you. So why shouldn't we
Yeah.
represent that in the video? And that was also the director Amit Krishnan's vision for that answers.
Yeah.
And it came out like I'm glad it came out well. But
Came out really
that
well.
again, that I'm like really glad. But that was in between Les Musk that happened
Oh,
while
yeah.
we were
Okay.
that was in
Yeah,
between.
true. That must have been sometime in 2018, I think.
2019, I believe.
2019, huh? Ah, yeah, could be. Uh, was it the Chennai concert or something? I remember I was there in India when this released
Okay.
for You, My Love. And yeah, on the day of the concert, I remember like in the afternoon, we were about to go to the venue, and then this song released like an hour before that. Yeah,
Okay.
that's how I remember it.
Quite recall.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. No, no, no. And so totally away from an ARR thing, you also worked on Suzuki Jigsaw. Uh, and
I
obviously I had to talk about this because I have that machine with me. I have a
okay.
1000 cc Jigsaw here, and I
Okay.
was I was so happy to see that. Talk me through that bit, just for
No,
fun.
I used to do motorsports shoots. I had a team. Like I used to work with them. Like they were the ones who commissioned it, and I used to be a part of that team. So we did
Yeah.
motorsport shoes for a lot of brands. Like you would have seen Tata, Prima, the truck racing, and
Oh,
Volkswagen and Suzuki. So it was always exciting to like capture because it's not motorsport shooting is something that's like very high speed and to know
yeah.
the nuances of like how they go about racing like they're and like what they have to do and prepare what they have to do to prepare for a race event like to be able to capture
Yeah.
that to understand that used to be good fun like those days of when we used to shoot it's all about running around the bikes would like zoom past and we used to also run along with it to shoot it to make it to bring that to make it dynamic and then come back to the hotel
Yeah.
room and then pick which shots we like we edit it so it was nice it was like it was a phase of my life where that I
So
still
good.
love shooting and only when it became Lemusk I didn't touch the camera for a long time I was behind a screen because I was on post production more than I was
Okay.
on camera but that shooting motorsport was always fun like they say it's
Awesome.
dangerous but it was fun.
Yeah, and dude, I mean, look, I'm going to stretch the boundaries of our friendship now. So
Okay.
when Lemusk opens up in Melbourne, please do come along with sir, and please bring your camera along, and then we'll go for a ride.
Sir's wish. I hope he takes me to Melbourne. That's his wish, really.
I'll tell him. I'll
Because
tell him.
we're working on things that he wants me to work on. So I really that's really up to Sir. But if I do, yes, we're doing that right. So we shoot something.
Right. And coming towards the end of the podcast, before I do have some tiny bits before we wrap up. I did tell you it was going to be a long podcast, so sorry. And but I have learned so much in this podcast, and I still feel that there's much more to learn. but I would probably reserve that for the part 2 of the podcast. That's probably when I have watched Le Musk, and then we do a debrief of that and then go deep dive into various other aspects that I may not have covered. So with that said, is there anything that you want to talk about that I have not touched on? Any topic under the sun?
So, like, one of the things we are proud of is that the entire CG for this film was done in India, in Kodambakkam, in our studio, right here. Okay, and that's something we're incredibly proud of. The fact that we didn't, we did it all in-house. You know that this 5 years, we hired students, we brought them, we taught them how to do it because we had to create our own pipeline for this, right? And that's so we worked on, like, I don't know, countless VFX shots, countless CG scenes, and I'm very proud of the team of, like, people we hired, students we worked with, and it was such a close-knit team that that pulled it off. And of course, there is this whole thing about working with Sir, like what his thought process is like and things like that. But I think you would want to reserve that for after you watch the film, because I'm sure you would have many questions about what was Sir thinking when, he was doing this shot? What was he thinking when, I'd love to talk about the man himself, because his vision is, he's a visionary. That's what I can say. Like when Cannes opened up to such positive reviews for us, we were left wondering that he saw something that we couldn't see. Like he saw something at the start of this project with the story. He wrote the story, right? With the story that he wrote, with the experience that he wanted to create. He saw something at the start of it that now when you see those people in the West react to it in such positive, overwhelmingly positive way, and it's not just positive. It's not like, yeah, it was good. It's like, wow, I can't believe what I just watched, right? Like those kind of reactions when you get, you can't help but wonder that what a visionary. Like he had a vision back then, and that vision is speaking through the reactions of these people who are coming to watch the film. And for us, that's so humbling, that I still believe I can't see what what they're seeing in the film. Because that's where I think, okay, I'm still an Indian. That's why maybe I can't see that. Or, maybe I'm numb. He meant it for a West, like a global audience, and that global audience is able to see it. So that's a testament to, for me, that's like, wow, he is a visionary. Like I'll do anything you say, sir. Like, we have fought with you at many times. You said, no, we can't do this. So, like, no, it won't look good, sir. No, it won't be right. No, people will react badly. And then to see the same audience that we thought, like he debunked all of that, and then they're all reacting so well, is like, sir, we we give it to you. So so his process, his creative thinking, and that's something I'm sure you will have a lot to talk about after you watch the film. And I'm sure a lot of people who go and experience this film would have those same questions in mind. Like, how did he think about this? Like, what was his idea here? So I think that would be a great thing to do in the next podcast if you want to. So
100%. 100%. And you touched on something which I was going to ask, but I had forgotten. So in the even just before the premiere in LA, Sir was asked a question by the host about something like the technology evolving and things like that. And then he gave an example of you working on something for 9 months and he decided to scrap it. Did you watch that bit?
No, I haven't.
Basically, apparently, so just to give you the backstory, you had worked on something and you apparently said, sir, I worked on this for 9 months. And Sir said, I don't care, do this.
Okay. I'm sure that's happened many times. Like I'm not okay, for an audience, it's new. But you should know that the original film was 72 minutes long. And that's what we are. Okay. So we so what you're watching is the creme of the creme, like, but there is so much hidden content, like so much bonus content out there that's way beyond this film that, we have worked on. So you can do the math, 37-minute film from a 72-minute thing. So we've worked on a lot. But when he said, when he did bring it down to 37 minutes, obviously, as somebody who's worked on for like 72 minutes, you would feel like, oh my God, like, I did work on so much, right? Like, that's like saying 3 out of 6 years, almost nearly that. But when you see the end product and you're like, okay, we got what you want, sir. And you're absolutely right with doing this. Like, so there is no regrets that, we had to make a 72-minute film to make a 37-minute film is what I believe. Like, that was the process. It was not like, it's not a loss. It's in fact a lot to gain. I've learned so much, and we have all learned so much as a team with doing that. And we also have all that bonus content, like, so it's not just his film. There's going to be so much more than this that he has planned. So it is exciting. So you can imagine, you're going to watch the film. You watch Scent of a Song, right? Which was the shortest 6-minute piece. And then you're going to watch this 37-minute piece. And then knowing that there is still so much more coming from this, you are going to want it. I hope so.
So am I right by saying it's going to come on to the Oculus store eventually?
We have plans. Okay. And I mean, the thing is, the experience is something that needs to be experienced as a whole on the chair, right? It's not something you can sit on your couch and watch. It's not the same experience. It's like taking 2 parts of it and giving you 1/3 of it, right?
Okay, get my partner to push the button on the thing.
Please rotate my chair. Like, when I sit on it, you're not getting the entire experience, and that's what he wanted. That's why it's not releasing like direct to a VR headset. But eventually, we do want more people to know what this is like and be excited and want to come and experience the whole thing. Hopefully, like, to tell them that you saw this, but the experience is much larger than that, right? And so we do have plans. We are trying to see how that can be worked out. What's tricky about VR and VR devices is that we don't want to give them a bad experience either. It's very tricky. It's very tricky. We have spent a lot of time to make sure that the audience is in absolute comfort. People don't want to take off their headsets. They can stand 37 minutes. I mean, that's a question we've been asked a lot of times, is how can people sit for 37 minutes in VR? We made sure they can. Like, we put the effort to make sure that it's absolutely comfortable. So, and we're not ready to compromise that if we feel, I think Sir is not ready to compromise that if it feels that people would wear a headset and not get that comfort. So we want to make sure, even if it's released for the Oculus, it's absolutely comfortable. They're getting the best experience that they can, because a lot more challenges, because you have to stream the content. You have to make sure it's at the highest resolution. It's way more demanding than what you're streaming with cinema, right? So all that is being worked out, and we hope that we can release it out to the public who would see that, experience it, see and hear it, and want to also feel and smell it. So
of course.
Come to it.
I can't wait. And in fact, I mean, almost every single time I talk to Sir, it's always about Musk and the tech behind it and all that. And I love it. So the other bit that I wanted to ask you was the recent promo that came out, for Musk, the audio which was on it, right, which was so catchy and it was so amazing. Why hasn't that featured on the soundtrack yet? Because the soundtrack is out on Apple Music, right?
It would be a shame to say that I don't know.
Okay, right. No, yeah, but
yes, that's the truth. He's put me on some things, so I have kind of
understand. Yeah.
He's always on to exciting things, so now I'm excited about new things that I have, that he's planning to do.
Right.
And I'm on that journey now.
Okay.
So I do keep up with the stuff.
Okay.
I'm like, oh my God, I want time to post about Le Musk. I've not got his time to post about, like, I worked on this film for 6 years. It's been a journey.
You can post
It's
about this
out there. Go
podcast
and
then.
watch it. Yes, that's why I really hope that, this is a bigger post and that people can, I can talk about it this way.
100%.
But
100%.
I just felt like, oh my God, what he's doing now is more exciting than the previous one. And, he's always like really inspiring that way.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
And so, yeah, I didn't realize that this track wasn't on the official soundtrack. So
It wasn't there.
and the fact that I've heard the soundtrack of Le Musk over and over again for
I know.
so many years, it didn't like strike me to go and like check it out.
I love the soundtrack. I mean, in fact, I heard it only a couple of days ago. In fact, it came out very recently. So, what's the next big thing? You don't have to go into the details.
I mean, I think this is just the beginning for us for Le Musk in a way,
Right.
that it's just starting to show, right? Like it's
The possibilities.
still a long journey. It's still a journey to take around the world.
Yeah.
So it's not the end yet for Le Musk itself. And so as we're doing this, there is still requirements coming up for this film in which we want to, like I said, the holograms that we are creating to make the experience center more beautiful. He's going to have more ideas to make the experience center more amazing, like depending on where he's taking it. So I don't think my work with Le Musk ever ends. Like it's not like I was a VFX supervisor and it's over yet. But he has like 20 plus projects running all at once. Like he's a man of so many ideas, and this is a face of Rahman sir that people are going to experience for the first time, right? Like it started with One Heart, then there was 99 songs.
Yeah.
There is this visual side of him, like him bringing his visual ideas to life. And like for me, up until Le Musk premiered at Cannes, we were always doubting him. Like we were like, can he do it? Obviously, like we know there's like for us, there's no second to him with music. Yeah. Okay. But with visual, right? Like, how is he going to do it? And then he goes and surprises us who has worked on the film with the reaction. So I think it's exciting. And I think for me, it's about trusting Sir, working on his, and seeing what I can do best. His project, he has like across all medium, he loves to mix. Like he likes to do VR, he likes to do cinema. He wants to do like maybe a web series. I mean, and he's not limited by that. Like he would have one idea and say, oh, I want to make a film out of it. The next moment he says, hey, what if we make this a VR film? Yeah. He's a man in the moment. Okay. And it's up to really all of us to adapt to his moment. Like, so what might start off as, so I can't really tell you something. Like after a year, you'll be like, hey, Sreerag, you told me it's a film, but now it's a VR experience. Or like you told me it's a VR experience. Now it's a web series. You told me, it's going to change. But I can definitely and safely say that he's a visionary. He has huge, amazing ideas in mind, and like he's just like on to conquer that. He's not stopped at like the Oscars. He's not stopped like, oh, I've achieved everything at the music.
Correct.
He's very much a child at heart. Like he puts us to shame sometimes. Like, I've always thought like he's a 20-year-old. Like that's the energy he's got. And he's always inspiring us every day to stay fresh and accept new ideas, never to settle. And so I would say it's going to be exciting. Like Le Musk is the first step. I want people to go and experience it to know, okay, this is a new side to Sir, this is a new side to A.R.Rahman that people haven't experienced. And I'm very excited about that. Like, I'm excited about people seeing the side of Sir more than people watching Le Musk. It's about people seeing that, this person is a visionary, and we really love him for that.
So good. So good. So just last final bit, a message for Sir before we wrap this up. And of course, you've had a fantastic journey for the last 6 years, just working on Le Musk. and of course you have had your journey prior to that as well with other projects that you worked on. But frame your message just from a Lemusk journey perspective. Things that comes to your mind. What do you feel like telling him? I know you can always tell him personally, but let it go via this podcast, and I'm sure he's going to watch this bit.
Okay, so I mean, like tons and tons of gratitude alone for believing in me, like at like every moment. Like even though I make mistakes, even though I like, you know, sometimes maybe I annoyed him at points, you know, sometimes not lived up to his expectations, but to have kept like you know, trust in me, and to kept, you know, like expecting more of me, to keep, you know, he has pushed me beyond my own boundaries, known what I have known beyond my comfort zones, and giving me this opportunity to learn so much. Like I feel like I've done a PhD, you know, in something, and like learn so much and grow while I'm at it. I mean, I don't know where to like start and begin. It's just like a whole lot of gratitude for him, and this having this connect and this opportunity to like be in his vision and to, you know, execute it. Like that's something. And like, and it's beyond the fact that what he has given me with his music for the, you know, like the 30 odd years of my life. he's he's beyond that, no, to push into something else, like to know him, to get to know him as not just a musician, as a mentor, as a father figure, as somebody who kept believing in me. That I have just like a whole lot of gratitude to him. And every single day, even today, since Les Musk, like, you know, to know myself, to, you know, to stay focused on the work and like look beyond myself and to I mean, again, gratitude. Let me just end with gratitude. That's what I have for sir. Like, you know, love and gratitude for sir every day.
Super, love it, love it. And I heard you also sing well.
No, I don't think that. I have Sreerag in my name. I trained as a Carnatic musician when I was a very small child.
See, I knew that.
So I have a music connect. I did learn Western music for a bit. I played the keyboard. I don't know if sir knows that I played the keyboard, so this might be a surprise. So so the music connect has always been there, and maybe that's what's helped me take it to the visual side. That's what I've always believed, that my understanding of the technicalities of music, the technicalities of computers, because I did a computer science as my engineering degree. So, and like music, I don't sing. To answer your question, I sing for myself. I'm not a good singer or anything. No, I can't claim that.
I'll leave you to it then. So, describe Les Musk in one word.
I think my expressions to speak for it. It's exhilarating. Exhilarating. Yeah.
Nice, cool, dude. I had so much fun, man. I really can't wait to meet you in person when I come to Chennai. And yeah, there's so much to talk about just about this movie. And I know for the fact that even beyond the stuff that you have spoken about in this podcast, there's so much more which we have not even touched on. And this is a lot of hard work. And also, sir has been super passionate about it since a long time, which I'm aware of. And yeah, so it's like, personally for me, it's like it's my personal achievement sort of a thing when I see Les Musk being opened up in LA and then coming to Melbourne as well, and of course other parts of the world. It's like, it feels like my own victory with all the hard work that you guys have put in. But it feels nice. I mean, even for you know, when I went to check out the installation here, I was so excited, and yeah, I described that to sir as well, but it felt like
Ladies and gentlemen,
my own
please
thing
fasten
is
your
about to
seatbelt.
come here, and I can't wait to experience it. So that's the feeling I had, and I can't wait. So that's happening soon, which I'm sure. So
Super happy to hear from you after your watch.
yeah, definitely, 100%. Dude, I'll leave it to it then. Thank you so much, and really appreciate the time that you're giving me. I think you're gone for like 2 hours or what?
Blood on your hands, the poison on my fang. I'm a lady with the gunfire, bang, bang. Guess I'm the dynamite. You don't wanna fight. I go boom, boom, boom when I kiss you bad night. When I kiss you bad night. When I kiss you bad night.